for the Diversity Tech Stack, for having us. This has been great. I've met people anywhere from California, Chicago, all over the states really. So I think this is really wonderful. Shannon, I think you're onto something amazing. I think it's going to be really much bigger than this by the time we're done. So I appreciate you and everyone here on staff. We're going to take a minute to introduce ourselves. My name is Juan Hernandez. I'm the EVP of Business Development and Client Relations for Pivotal Innovations. And Natalie.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. I'm Natalie Marino. I am the Director of IT Solutions for an HR company called G&A Partners out in Houston. And by night, I'm also the CEO and founder for the Latina Techie as well.
Hi folks, I'm Quiana. I'm a Solutions Engineer at Viventium, which is also a healthcare and payroll company. And this is my first time on the panel, so please don't mind me if I'm a little choppy up here. But yeah, I'm excited.
Hello, my name is Nigel Chimwaza. I am a Principal Solution Engineer at HubSpot. Also by night, I am I'm the founder and also the CEO of an online tech bootcamp previously started. And then lastly, just got promoted to a new role of a father of two. So,
man, that's amazing. Terrence Bunkley, I'm a cloud solutions architect for Microsoft, and just like Nigel, I just had a little girl. She's a month and a half year old.
So we're like a family here. There's a lot of free knowledge that we're going to share with you, a lot of free games. So we're going to get started right away. And I'll start with Nigel. Nigel, what inspired you to be a solutions architect, and how did you get started?
Great question. So, really how I got started, I'm born in Zimbabwe. So, as you guys know, you have to be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. So I was pushed into the field. But all jokes aside, I was the youngest of three, and I think Deacon Drake said it the best. So it's not about who did it first, it's about who did the best. So I always had that curiosity that really wanted to figure out new ways, how to approach things, asking the right information, trying to do and perfect efficiencies. And I think if I could take a step back and look at how I got to where I'm at right now, I think it would be the curiosity seed. Curiosity, it breeds innovation. Obviously, for asking these questions, digging into the situations, things like that, it not only pushes, companies and organizations, but products, and I think it really continues to improve where we're at. And then also, creativity or curiosity is a huge key for problem solving. In our world, as we all know, problem solving is a skill that is needed. And regardless of what department, what area you're in, problem solving is key. So being able to approach it with a certain mindset of, okay, well, what's the best way to go around this? Or how can I be adaptive? How can I be curious and being creative as well? Things like this, I think, are huge values into our role and other roles as well.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Facts. Sure. Facts. So I think to that point, I feel like in our roles, it's more important, rather than the information that we're providing, it's the information that we're uncovering. You uncover this information by asking those right questions. So that's my thing.
Terrence, you want to add more to that? From your background.
I feel like Nigel covered a whole lot of gems, and so I'm going to repeat one really big one as a solutions architect. Make sure you're asking the right questions. What's your budget? What's your timeline, right? We want to make sure that when we're brought into the room, we're not going to just jump into solutioning right now, because like Nigel said, the biggest part is there's so many ways to skin a cat. There's so many ways to solve a problem. So when you get in there, you want to test it. Okay. So yeah, when you get into the room, you want to just make sure that you don't jump into solutioning. Understand the business problem, and it's very key. You want to be curious, and you really want to understand the problem that you're solving as a solutions architect, because at the end of the day, when you get done with the project, they're gonna ask you, what was the impact? What was the value, right? And if you can't articulate that, you endanger yourself and endanger your job, right? Because that's what the stakeholders care about, and that's what their business leaders care about. How much did you bring in? How much did you save? And all those good things.
Another thing I want to add is, along with asking the right questions, you want to actively listen. Because you're going to uncover a lot of solutions to problems your client didn't even know that they had. And that's where you can really be impactful with what you can provide them and build that relationship like, oh, they really helped me. So I just wanted to point that out too.
You want to add anything?
I think my comrades here really come there.
So I mean, I think to encompass everything you said, at the end of the day, as a solutions architect, the business requirement, the business process has to be met. If you don't meet that, there's no purpose for the technology. The technology must leverage what we're trying to complete, which is fix the business issue and business problem at the end of the day. So I think with that said, we'll get to our next question, and Natalie's right here, so I'll go with Natalie. How do you balance the creative aspects of solutions architecture with the technical expertise required to design and meet the project?
That's a great question. I think when we solutions or when we become solutions architect, we're liaisons, right, between our business stakeholders or our clients and our developing partners, right? So we're in this world where we're half in, half out, but at the same time, we're creating art, right? We're creating solutions, and the only difference is that our mediums happen to be the software and the technology that we utilize to create those solutions, to create that magic for our clients. Because that's really what we do. We sit, we actively listen, we ask the right questions, and sometimes it takes a lot of experience and time to learn how to ask those right questions, right? Not every project is number one flawless out the gate, right? So when we're leveraging both, right, technical, non-technical expertise and being able to translate those requirements, I think that's where the sweet spot happens in a lot of our positions and the teams that we help to manage. And it also, you know, when we're put in a mindset to really be visionaries for our clients and for our business stakeholders, we really have to kind of embrace becoming a magician, right? And embracing becoming a visionary, because that's what they're essentially paying us to do. We're being paid for the companies that we work for. We're being paid to create solutions and technology for tomorrow, right? Because to your point, if we're not doing any of those things, we're building technology that nobody's using, and it's just going to sit off the shelf and collect dust. So to me, it's my solutions architect team, like they're magicians. Like that's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, the first step always is listening. You know, and I think everyone touched that point. You listen, you ask questions, and then how you take what you've learned and incorporate that into the technology is really the end all and be all at the end of the day. And I think we all agree with that. So my next question is to Quiana. How do you approach identifying and analyzing business requirements, and what role does creativity play in that process?
So I think that it was already mentioned, but yes, understanding what your managers, what your leadership team wants, what's the business goals, that's the first step of knowing how you need to set up your approach on your metrics and what you need to meet. Then the next step for me would be that thorough understanding of what your clients are actually looking for, knowing what they want and finding out what they really need. Because what they are asking for is not always necessarily what's going to provide them with the outcome that they're looking for. They may want growth, or they may want to mitigate risk. You need to know what solutions you have that are going to help them meet that goal, and then the creativity comes in when you take the data from your company, the data from your client, and figure out a beautiful way to have a fluid and flawless and friendly delivery that's not salesy. You really want to be that companion to them, letting them know we're here to help you, not pressured and all of that. So that's my answer.
Right, because sometimes you have to have that tough conversation where it's like, what they need is not really what they want, right? And you have to tell them. You have to be. That's why you're there, to provide that guidance and that advisorship to say, listen, I hear what you're saying, I know what you want, but this is really what you
To add on to that, I think a lot of times we feel like people are here, or prospects are here, or clients are here and working with us because we have a product that they want or a product that they need. And I would like to really combat that to more so thinking of they just have a reality that they're wanting to get to. And your product or your solution is simply the vehicle to get them to that reality. So once we take a step back and not trying to push product or push price and push timelines, and we start to what Natalie said, paint that picture of what this could be, paint that vision, paint that value to them, I think removes us from pushing that product and price. So I love that analogy that you spoke on in regarding art, and I think that's exactly what we are. We're artists, magicians.
Still magicians.
So, speaking of having these tough conversations with the clients, Natalie, could you name a project that was relatively challenging to you, and what methods did you use to overcome that challenge?
So I have a few in my career, but one that really sticks out, and I'll never forget because I was fresh off maternity leave. So picture this, right? July 26th and 27th, 2019, I was fresh off of maternity leave, and I don't know if I know we have some HR corporate baddies in here. So I'm in HR, PEOs to be specific, and I started in technology. I always say I got in here on accident, but I started launching benefit enrollment tools. So for when your company goes online and you're going through your benefit enrollment on a yearly basis, my team was creating those tools, right? Back in 2019, those 2 days, I lost 2 days of peak open enrollment data. If you can believe that, I'll never forget this. That also was a very pivotal moment in my career where I was like, I gotta move out of this place, I can't do this anymore. I lost 2 days of enrollment data, so immediately I mobilized my communications team, because transparency is key for all of our clients who have to let them know what's going on, even if we don't necessarily have a root cause, because I essentially had to go back and have all these employees re-enroll in their benefits. But as us techies know, data is never lost, right? So initiating communication campaigns to ensure that we have transparency and communication plan there with our clients, and then pushing your software vendor partners to find that data, because it's never lost. By the way, all the internet clicks and that's data's never lost, right? So and just pushing my vendor to I pretty much was a brand new mom, and I took absolutely no for an answer. So that's a lot of what we do as well. We keep pushing the needle. Pushing the envelope to find the solutions for our clients to be able to deliver the value that we have to deliver. So it was a case of communicating to my clients the transparency of the issues and what we were, encountering, and a lot of pushing our vendors to perform what they needed to perform and to find that data for me, and they did.
Well, that's a lot of years of experience speaking, so I hope that everyone can take some of that in. This morning we had a Early Advisors coffee meetup. And the question about how do we stay current with today's technologies that's ever evolving came up. So I want to ask Nigel, how does he stay current with all the emerging technologies and different things that are always changing in our industry as a solutions architect?
I think really the first thing is just being adaptable, being flexible, because as we know, we're here because there's been a consistent technology is never going to, it's not a static situation. It's always changing, it's always dynamic. I mean, also the AI stuff that's going on. Now we're just trying to adapt to it and connect to ChatGPT at this point. So it's always changing. So you fear the risk of being left behind if you're not being flexible. Or sometimes you have to pivot, where this is what I was doing, and well, actually now with the change of the current, this is what's important now. So being adaptable, and then I guess mainly, most importantly, is being a lifelong continuous learner. Like once you have that mindset that you've arrived or you know what you need to know, that's a scary place to be. So I would challenge everyone with staying up to date with what's going on, attending these kind of conferences, connecting with people and individuals. Reading, publishing, there's so many things that's important to staying up to date and for me and I know everyone on this panel, we're lifelong learners, and that is an amazing path to be on.
I think it's great advice. I think as a solutions architect, you can't possibly put a great solution together unless you understand what's available to you. So the ability for us to always learn all the nuances of our business is completely imperative to what we do every day.
Yeah, even to add to that, I think that the more, when we think about when we create solutions, it's not, it doesn't just stop there. They're living and breathing, right? They're living and breathing processes, living and breathing software. So even once you deliver that solution, there's innovation coming right behind it to enhance other processes as well. So the work is always evolving.
So that's actually a great segue into the next question for Terrence. What do you think, what's been said, is some of the important technical skills as well as soft skills necessary to be successful in this industry?
As a solutions architect who's walked inside of a lot of rooms where things won't fire, your ability to debug and find the problem is crucial. So to those people that aren't too technical, make sure your technical team, logging statements, debugging statements, stack traces, get all of that, because your value skyrockets if you can walk in and fix almost any technical problem, or walk a team through how to fix the technical problem. From a soft skills standpoint, I would say communication is number one. And it covers all facets, right? Documentation. Can people understand? Can people consume? When you go on vacation, can people follow your process on how to deploy the solution? And even going deeper as infrastructure as code, which is the new practice nowadays, right? So when you start to think about communication, is this written well? Are my emails clear? When I talk to my stakeholders, technical, non-technical, do they understand what I'm saying, or everybody just, and things like that. From a soft skills standpoint, I also say leadership, because leadership is going to be very hard as a solutions architect, especially as black or brown, as a black individual myself, and for my black and brown colleagues. You're going to be doubted every day, all day. Somebody's going to try to call you out on something, and you have to sometimes just stand on your own and say, look, I know my stuff, right? And so those aspects of leadership are going to kick in, and you're also going to have to make hard choices, right? Because in the Azure space, we have like SQL, we have Cosmos, you got like 16 different types of databases, you got 2 development teams, everybody wants to go a direction, so you have to choose the best direction for the business, and you have to stand on your own 2 feet. So, soft skills, leadership, communication, things like that, the technical skills, debugging, like we said, a continuous learning mindset, and I think those are some of the top ones out of the list that I can think of.
Can I add one of those? One skill, and I know solutions architecture is a tad bit different than solutions engineering, but empathy is a huge component of what we do, because we need to show, as part of the relationship building aspect of our role, we need to show that we understand what they're going through. We need to let them know that our best, not our best interest, but our goal is to get them what they need. And that's how we build the relationship. And that's a big part of our business goals, is to make sure that we don't just acquire new clients, but we retain the clients that we do have. So I think that was the only one that I would have added to what Terrence said.
I think it's a mic drop. You can drop the mic.
Yeah. I think a lot of us lead when we start fact-finding and we're starting to ask those questions. The very first question I ask, and when I start any meeting, show me the pain. Show me your pain points. Walk me through your process. Show me what you're doing today so that I can visionary or become your visionary for a better tomorrow. So I think that when we start by asking those pointed questions, that really takes us to the next level.
So in our last panel before lunch, there was a point that came up about understanding what you're really good at, right? And I'll be honest, I probably didn't figure that out until about 5 years ago. And it applies very well to solutions architecture. And how do we effectively communicate to non-technical folks that are sponsors and are stakeholders in the project?
I'm going to jump in on that one.
Please.
First and foremost, draw pictures. If the quote, a picture is worth 1,000 words, draw pictures. I've hopped on calls and everybody's talking. No one knows what the hell they're talking about. Sorry. No one knows what they're talking about, but it's literally, as soon as you start whiteboarding the session, start diagramming your setup, the technical folks, they can see whether your RESTful calls are connected to your front ends, your back ends, they can see that. Or if you're talking to your non-technical stakeholders, if they can understand the business process, because a lot of people think they know what the business process is, right? But when you start putting in the flows and the acceptance and the use cases and things like that, it's very simple for everybody to see, right? And so, number one, always have a picture in front of you. Bring a picture to the meeting. If it's not a picture, start drawing one, because if you can draw it and people can understand that, it's a big win on all fronts, because the second thing that usually happens is, hey, can I get an email of what you drew up for us, right?
Sometimes it just takes a napkin and a pen.
Exactly. Let me check my list. Check.
See, you're done.
That doesn't do it.
Right?
The second piece is when you're talking to non-technical stakeholders, you wanna try to build up your book of solid metaphors. Like I tell people, like has anybody heard of containers, Docker technology? We got a few hands, so all right, this is a perfect time for a container metaphor, right? So here's mine. I've been working on it for a little bit. It hit, sometimes it don't hit, so I'm gonna try it, right? So I tell people, when you think of a container, think of a shelf that specializes in one meal, right? A container is good at one job when done correctly. It does one job very well, right? A container or a chef in this instance can make that one meal all day. So think about when I get a request for food from that chef, you get that container, you get that chef, you get that one meal back. How do you scale that? 5 chefs, 5 containers, right? And think about inside of that container, it's like a web application. And so it's the same thing inside of this little working area, and it's basically giving you your food back or giving you your web request back, right? And you might ask, okay, how can I change that, or how can I separate that? When you start to look at containers, now you say containers is now just an abstract box, and a chef, instead of cooking sushi, you can cook steak, right? You can cook seafood. So now you can have 3 different types of containers. They all do their own specialized instance, right? And basically, when you start to think about it in terms of IT, the way I translate it is, now you have a bunch of chefs that you can deploy inside the world, and I call it start serving the food. They start feeding the masses, right? So now that I've used that metaphor, do people get containers a little bit more?
Yes.
There we go. I see you on one. I see you.
I'm a marketing person, so if you can explain it to me, I mean, you did a good job.
Amen.
Next question is for Quiana. How do you prioritize and manage competing demands and priorities when designing the solution?
Okay, so the first step for me, and all of us, I'm sorry, I'm very center focused. First step that I think our role is responsible for is having a thorough understanding, of course, of the solutions that you offer. You know, and that's not so much a difficult thing. We're techies, we like it, so we're going to know our software in and out. We have to be the product expert. Once you reach that role, then you are that magician. You know, you can make anything come to fruition with it. But the second thing, and it might seem like common sense, but it's easily forgotten, you want to make sure that your organization is top tier, because you're building relationships. When you go into these demos, and you might be having demos multiple times a day, several demos a week. If you get your clients mixed up, then they're going to feel like what are you doing? You're not together. You've lost all of their hope, you know? So having your clients organized, having your thoughts and process organized is a very key role, something that I had to really develop and make sure I had on point. I think that is
Not to mention losing the account and losing your job thereafter.
I think sometimes people forget and they miss back to basics and fundamentals. Like we miss going back to getting like your soft skills of like being organized, having leadership skills, being assertive and speaking up in meetings. Like we forget that the fundamentals really do help you get through the door and leverage so you can continue using those to leverage to keep moving up in your career.
So this last question is from Nigel. What is your advice to an aspiring solutions architect that's looking to get into this field, as far as what they should do and what they should look out for in your career?
I don't have any advice for you. No, it's fine. First things first, I think we need to double down on the importance of connections. Connections, whether it's community, whether it's mentorship, whether it's other people that look like you, like in this space, connection is key because I know for a fact, my personal experience, connections can get you, networking can get you in doors that your experience can't. So making sure that you're utilizing every connection that you have. Every job that I've had thus far has been through a connection. I didn't send out an application. I saw someone, connected with them, chatted with them, and they're like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this job. Keep in mind, I was trying to get a jet lag, but it was low key. I'm trying to finesse my way into this role. And then I guess the second part would be your mindset. I would encourage, if you're walking into this role and they hired you, you're there for a reason. There's a lot of times where I was the only person of color or the youngest person in an organization, and I felt like I didn't belong, like I shouldn't be here. Like maybe they were just giving me a handout just to add to their their list of hey we hired an African on board and whatnot. But for me, once I realized and I changed my mindset, not only do I belong here, but I can make an impact here. Yes. Whether I may not be able to be the one that's growing with the company or in leadership levels, but if I'm here, I can at least open the door for other people like me to walk into organizations as well. So regardless of what your purpose is at that role, it's so much bigger than you. So changing that mindset for me, as well as connecting with the right people at the right organizations, is a real game changer.
I think that's great advice because that speaks to so many different verticals, right? I mean, across the board in your career, you can take advice, not just technology, not just solutions architecture. So.
I need to add one more thing too. I think that technology is the new wave, right? Like it's very sexy. It's very everybody wants to be here. The money's great. But I think that sometimes when we have techies that want to transition in, they're not asking themselves the question of what do you actually want to do? Because you can solution in any industry, right? In construction, in technology, nursing, any industry you want to be in, right? But when you're actually going to build technology, make sure you're building technology for things that you actually care about, right? Like if you're in certain industries, it's not going to fulfill you. So make sure that you're in the spaces and in the industries you want to be in as well.
So I misspoke. I actually have one last question for Terrence. How do you see the world of solutions architecture moving forward, and what challenges do you anticipate for our industry?
First and foremost, everybody knows it's gonna be artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence at the speed of light. It's gonna do a lot of things that we don't want to do, and it's gonna do a lot of things for us. The concern is doing it wrong. Because it'll give you all the facts and everything that you asked for, but it may give you something wrong that you may think is factual. So we gotta be really wary of artificial intelligence. The second piece is the scale and complexity of today's world's solutions and problems. I think that at the end of the day, I forgot the guy that said it yesterday, but he said, you want to understand the underlying technology. Well, if everything's moving 1,000 miles a second, when do you take the time to really dive into the technology to truly understand it? Like, I would ask, is there a raise of hands who really understand how ChatGPT works and large language models work? I'm gonna put my hand into it. Right? And so you're gonna have so much abstraction, and you're gonna have like so many solutions like SAP, you got ChatGPTs, you got so many APIs, and you got new API or artificially intelligent companies coming out all the time, right? And so trying to wrap your head around that with the mindset of continuous learning can be daunting. And so at times you're gonna say, okay, this is the type of solutions architect I'm gonna be. And you really have to sit back and understand the complexity, while at the same time learn to specialize in the things that you truly, like you said, like you truly care about. Because it's gonna be a lot, it's gonna be changing quickly, and so you just gotta, focus in this world of so many things coming around you. And I'm gonna check my notes one more time. And what else? Last but not least, sustainability. I think since we're moving to the cloud, everybody, you load this VM, load this container, load this, load that. You're gonna have computers running 24/7, but when we talk about sustainability and how we're trying to, help the planet and reduce our usage, we gotta keep that in mind, because we're really hitting the point of infinite power, essentially, right? You turn on in the cloud, you forget about it. It's somebody else's data center, but those data centers uses power. Those data centers produce pollution. So when you think about infinite scale, the Earth, it does take a toll on the Earth, right? And so those will be my top 3 things that I think are coming. And, we have to balance out how we use the benefit for the sake of the environment.
So what do you think about those folks who still are scared of the cloud? From a solution standpoint, how do you deal with that?
I tell people the cloud is probably more secure than their own environment, simply because at Microsoft, they give you the certifications, they give you the policies, and customers are trying to come to us with emails like, we ain't telling you, right? Like, why are you asking me this question? Like, you either use our cloud or not, right? And so people that have a fear of the cloud, it really just shows their lack of understanding of it. And when they talk about the physical security and they try to say, well, show me your certifications, what about, SSL and all that stuff, it becomes that conversation of, they call it the shared responsibility model. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but there's something called the shared responsibility model that says, hey, if you install, what's Outlook on your own premise, you have to manage your server, you have to manage the security updates, you have to manage a whole lot of things, right? And some IT people are like, cool, I got it. That takes time, money, all this other stuff, right? But if you say, hey, I want to use Outlook in the cloud, Office 365 and things like that, all you care about is a login and security policy. So when you truly think about the trade-offs of what you're trying to do in the cloud and people that are afraid of it, when you get down to the specifics of what they're afraid of, it goes up in smoke a lot of the times. So.
Would you say that within our world of solutions architecture, it's also educating the client?
That's exactly what I was about to say. If they show any type of fear, then immediately the first thing I thought about was, now you can get an opportunity to be that trusted advisor again. You calm those fears by educating them, letting them know exactly what's going on. Because most of the time, like I said, it's transparency, they just don't know what's going on. And then, it builds a relationship. It just trickles down, and that's the beauty of being a solutions architect, is you learn how to be a chameleon and maneuver around your client to get the job done for them and for yourself. So yeah.
So we're therapists at the time.
A little bit.
Can I ask a follow-up question to Terrence?
Sure.
Well, the whole panel, but Terrence specifically, you brought it up. Around responsibility in AI. So I'm writing a book right now about responsible marketing. And part of my research process, I've been playing with these chat tools. I asked one the question, what are some great quotes by marketers about a certain topic? It's not even relevant what. All white men, responses returned. When I then asked it, what are some quotes by black men or women about this topic, it said it does not compute. But I know that those books exist. So how do we, as maybe not technical people or technical people as well, navigate our usage of some of these new technologies in a way that you might think of it as solution architects?
Something real basic, I think it really, to your point, when we're hiring diverse talent, that's a huge component to the problem, right? companies really have to make a huge effort to hire diverse talent when we're building products, because those are the types of issues that we encounter, right? Because you can imagine who was building that code and who was filling up those databases to retrieve those answers for you. So I think the basic fundamental is companies need to do a better job hiring diverse talent. And then I'll let you take it away with the real technical.
Remember I said I'm not too sure how AI works. So I can't explain ChatGPT, but I will say in all honesty, the first piece is, as a non-technical person, when you're in that space, you have to really look at your response, not copy and paste it, analyze it, and send the feedback back to whatever source is taking it from, right? Because any large language model, it got its information off of somebody, something, and it's probably biased, right? And the second piece, like you said, if you start to run into young black, brown individuals, not all young black, brown individuals but anybody excited about tech that's a person of color, who identifies as a person of color, push them inside of those STEM spaces, push them inside of the mathematical classes, right? Because you're building that bridge that you may not have had the opportunity to be a part of, but build it for the next generation, build it for yourself, because they're gonna be our future. And our future needs to be multifaceted, our future needs to be diverse. And when we get to the point of where AI is truly taking over, we need that full representation, right? So even when it comes to that excitement of somebody saying, I want to get into data engineering, data architecture, push them heavily. I want to get into AI so we can get that representation, because we definitely need it.
And don't be afraid to start them young. Right? They can do it. They really can. You just have to expose them to it. Yeah. And you'll see. My youngest son is 7, and last summer he was coding, believe it or not. And that's just because he's given the opportunity to see what happens. And he says he wants to be a software engineer, so we're in the right frame of mind, right?
And I just want to add one more thing about it. I don't know much about ChatGPT either. I keep this kind of high level. But the way that you looked up for quotes and they weren't there, then the beauty of AI was not so much that it was all-knowing, it's the fact that it can learn. So then you have a conversation with the computer, the answers and the information you give it will be stored, and then the next person who comes behind you will have an answer, most likely. So maybe we should consider teaching the AI what we want it to know. Things that the coders may not naturally know. It might not even be intentional, you know?
View it as an interaction rather than as a result.
Wow. So I can ask that. Have you heard of Joy Donald, who wrote Beyond Brand?
Right?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have a bonus question for Quiana, and that's, how does neurodivergence affect your role as a solutions architect?
Okay. So a little bit of background. I'm a late diagnosed neurodivergent person, found out at the age of 33 that I'm on the autistic spectrum, and I also have ADHD. So I've always been super analytical, always been a person who may not always be super comfortable in situations like this, but when I went through my motions of finding out about tech, finding out that I enjoyed web development, finding out that there is a position that intertwines them both. Now, I struggle with interactions sometimes, but I enjoy it. I enjoy teaching, and I enjoy being that helper, right? So I think that having an understanding of myself, and then getting into this position, finding out that there are a lot of people who may be undiagnosed and intimidated with tech. Don't be intimidated with tech. It's not all math and numbers. You know, my role is very much a sales role. We have to make sure that we have that conversation. And even if that's something, the conversation part or interaction part is something you struggle with, the analytical side of your mind, of course, we're just wired differently, right? So there's a very big analytical portion that you have to get into tech, and that's where I thrive. So I think that I really just wanted to put that out there, that anybody who may be neurodivergent, consider what you want to do. Back to what Natalie said, what do you want to do? you want to be a data analyst, you may not have to talk to anybody. You know, if you want to be a coder, you may not have to speak to anybody. Or you may be talking all the time like I am, because you're helping to solve people's problems. So I definitely love the fact that my extroverted, over-analytical self found my tribe, you know, just to bring it back to diverse attack. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for that insight. Thank you, everyone. That's a wrap for us.
Okay.